Hey, Angie.
Hello.
So, I get people that come to me and go, I have no idea what story I want to tell. Um, and I think today we can talk about there is not just one kind of story, that there are so many different possibilities of what kind of story people could tell. And today I thought we could go and walk through 8 different styles and give some examples of stories that you and I have created over our times as digital facilitators.
Perfect. I think that's a great idea because I think that if we kind of preview the kinds of stories that participants have shared in other workshops and that they'll get a much better idea of some possibilities for their own. So I think that every title that I think we were planning on mentioning today, or at least most of them, will have a link down in the description so that after the video you can go and watch the example. There might be one or two that don't have links, and that's because the individual chose not to have their story published publicly. And that's fine too, because that is your story and you have the right to decide where it gets shown. So why don't we jump into it?
Sure, sounds good.
Now, let's see. So I think the first one we can talk about is legacy stories. One of my favorites. I'm sure it's one of yours too, right?
It is.
A legacy story isn't about I think a lot of people think it's just about, when somebody died.
Hmm.
What it actually is it's about how they lived, right? What they built, what they valued, what they want to carry forward. So
Yeah.
it's the here, here I was, and this is what mattered about me, that type of story.
I would love to see everyone do a legacy story. And we include the legacy letter writing in our guided autobiography classes. And every time I hear one, I always think this is a logical digital story. So, the big example I can share is the story I did with Larry Greenberg, who in his 90th year, he did the story Generation to Generation, or the big title is Door La Door. So in Generation to Generation is the Hebrew translation, and he reflects on his life and in this 5-minute story and is really impactful. So that was quite an honor to be able to work with him on that legacy message.
I watched that. It was beautiful. And I've used it in my workshops as well. And
Yeah,
the one that I actually was going to link to was Grady's story, which is actually a fairly recent one that she had done. And it's a story about, oh, it's such a heartwarming one, of the first time that she met her stepdaughter and how terrified she was, and then how their relationship grew as they
it's
spent
a
time
it's a really sweet story.
together.
Yeah. So then the next one that we'd like to plant a seed in storyteller's mind is that of a tribute. And a tribute can be about someone, usually by someone who loves them, of course. And it's a way of saying, this is who you were to me and why you're still here to receive this tribute. And I think you have a great example, right?
I do. It's another fairly recent story as well, Dion's story. It's a beautiful example. Of an infant. So she had given birth, and the child lived for 12 hours. And so it's a beautiful tribute to the 12 hours of her life.
Wow. Wow.
Let's see. Family story is, I think, number three on our list of types of
Mhm.
stories we wanted to talk about today. Um, Family stories dig into the parts of a family history that don't always get talked about. Sometimes it's secrets, sometimes it's the quiet things, the things that nobody necessarily wrote down.
Yeah. Um, and I have a couple of examples that I've worked on. The story I did, what they didn't tell him is the story of my father's double lost. He lost his father and found out that his mom had passed when he was just young, and no one had ever told him. And then the other one, of course, a little lighter than that, is The Invisible Child. And that was my husband Greg's story after he wrote in his guided autobiography class about family. And we took that one and reduced the number of words. And then he drew from his archives of incredible photos and we put together this short story, and it's been lovely to have that one.
Isn't that the one he
Uh,
showed at the Digital Story Slam this year?
it is, it is. It's what we ended with at that event. So the next one, of course, is the eulogy. And I don't have an example of a human, but I do have an example of my dog that passed away. And it's a really therapeutic process to honor someone in this way, to have their photos. And to process it. So the story example we're going to do is Janga's story, and that is our dog, 15-year-old dog that passed away in October.
Another one of those tear jerkers.
Yeah,
Oh, so then we have the challenge overcome kind of territory for storytelling. Um, this is a story that kind of, what is it that tried to break you, I guess is what it comes down to, but it didn't, right? So it could be addiction or illness or loss or reinvention, transition, any type of challenge. So that's what this story is about, how you dealt with that. So I've got a couple. The first one is Victim No More, which is actually my very first digital story. And then we have Marie's story, which is one that I showed at the Digital Story Slam this year, a veterinarian talking about a medical error and how she managed through that. And so
I
those,
love Marie's
I
story.
know, is
Yeah.
it's
And
so powerful.
I got to work with you on your first story.
Yes.
So, and it very powerful. Um, impactful story. Yeah. And then the one I have is Anna, a Mexican woman here who tells her story about raising her son with autism as a single mom in a system that does not really support situations like this. But her story is quite inspiring. So then the next one is a medical journey. So a medical journey walks through a diagnosis, a treatment, a surgery, or a life that had to be rebuilt around a new reality. It's very specific and is often the story that helps someone facing the same thing feel less alone. And we've witnessed that often with our mentor, Dr. Mike Lang, who started this journey with digital storytelling in the medical field and continues to work with different organizations and patients and providing patients voices. And we'll link Mike's story below as some inspiration for you if that's the route you want to go.
Thinking of the next type of story that we have ready for, which is the origin story. And that's something that I've done myself. So an origin story, it kind of answers the question of how did you become who you are? So it's the turning point or the decision or the moment that things shifted for you. And so the one that I did for myself for my business is that you'll see below is called My Journey to Life Story Work and how I got into this in the first place.
And I have a similar one called 40 Days. It's also a tribute to my dad. And it was a hard one to do for sure, but once I did it, I was so happy I did it. And then the other origin story that I just recently completed is called Six Impossible Things, and it's the story of my pottery teacher and how she moved to Mexico, started a pottery studio, and opened it to the local community, including the expat community. And, she's now at that point in life where she's looking at succession. And I felt like it was be a powerful thing for her to put this story together. So we didn't want to just focus on the negative stories. And so we also wanted to remind people that not every story needs to carry weight. Some of them can be just joyful, celebrating something, and one that makes people laugh. And so I recently did one called Tika and Company, and Tika was our Corgi Shepherd who traveled from Canada to Guatemala with us. And as we lived in Guatemala, we collected dogs, and each of those dogs has a story. And I decided to put that together, and I'm really glad I did. And another one that I did last year was Sisterhood Never Dies. And that was one I did with my 80-year-old sister-in-law who still has friends from her primary school days, and she still meets with them every Friday. So it was a really fun story to do. It was a fun one to screen and share it with her friends.
So we gave you 8 story types, 8 completely different ways to look at your own life. And here's the thing, you probably felt a pull towards at least one of these while we were talking, and that pull is worth paying attention to. So if you're ready to actually write and film that story, from page to screen starts September 17th. We have 7 weeks, 8 spots, and you'll find the registration link below. So go down and watch a couple of the stories that you'll find links to in the descriptions, and then come tell us which story you want to tell.
We want to help you tell your story.